When I launched my best-selling book, The Desire Brand Effect, a few years ago, my main objective has always been to help people build a desired brand with repeat customers where they're collecting these true fans who buy from them every season. So if you're someone who wants to build a jewelry sales machine with your business and you're ready to kind of call in those repeat customers, introducing a brand new free private podcast just for you. Introducing Sales on Repeat, a private podcast for jewelry business owners that is going to help you attract high quality buyers, build customer loyalty, and create a seamless sales machine online. There are 10 amazing episodes plus 2 bonus episodes in this series that are going to show you our community building secrets that are all designed to boost your sales with minimal time commitments. So if you are a heck yes, I am all in, Tracy, spill the tea, well, head on over to flourishthriveacademy.com/secret podcast. That's flourishthriveacademy.com/secret podcast and download the Sales on Repeat podcast series for free. Welcome, my friends. Welcome to the Thrive by Design podcast. I am so excited to be here today. And today is a very special episode for me, which I'm going to share with you in just a minute. For those of you who are new, I'm Tracy Matthews. I am the host of the Thrive by Design podcast. Welcome to the show. And I'm excited today for a very special reason. 3 years ago, this week on November 9th, I released my book, my best-selling book called The Desire Brand Effect, Stand Out in a Saturated Market with a Timeless Jewelry Brand. And I am beyond thrilled to announce that we are releasing an amazing product that goes along great with the book. Now, I've had this dream of creating a workbook that goes along with the Desire Brand Effect, and that is coming. We weren't able to pull it off for the 3-year anniversary, but you should probably see it around the holiday season. More on that. But more than anything, I think as visual entrepreneurs, as people who are creative, as people who like to see pretty things and like to see things that are designed well, we have created and released these new desired sharing proposition brand guidelines that basically walk you through and help you formulate all of the key principles of your desired brand so that you can communicate that out in the world and have something beautiful to share with other people as well. So if you want to learn a little bit more about that, you can listen to the pre-roll tape. We'll also be having links in the show notes, but it's a beautiful guide that is up to 50 pages, depending on how much detail you want to put into this. And it's an amazing resource for you to fill out and have a visual example of your brand guidelines. This includes everything from your mission, your vision, your core values, your desired sharing proposition, your pricing strategy, all the things that you want to put out into the world and actually have a clear place to communicate that with outside vendors, with your team, or just with yourself to gain more clarity. Plus, in this guideline, you can clearly communicate your brand voice, your brand style, and everything that makes you unique as a jewelry or a luxury product brand. So let's do this. If you want to check those out, make sure that you check the show notes. I'm going to have a link for that. So let's talk about the Desire Brand Effect. I am just so proud of this book. I spent years writing it, and I feel like it's one of my the first, as people call it, the jewelry business Bible, but the first iteration of my life's work. When I launched this book, it was, right after COVID. It was an interesting time because I'd originally planned to launch it in 2019. And then we were trying to launch it in 2020. And I was just a little bit of a mess because of everything going on. And so we paused it one more year. We got the book done. We released it in November. And I'm so proud of what we were able to create. This book is really a framework for building any successful, thriving business. And I say any business because it's not technically just for jewelry business owners. I'm launching my new brand in the new year, and I am following this methodology to be able to launch that new business as well. Now, this book is centered around different jewelry brands who have really embodied the desired brand effect, which is awesome. And if you don't have a jewelry business and you're listening to this podcast, pick up the book anyway, because it's super valuable and you're going to get a lot of context. And I wanted to just walk you through some of the important aspects of one of my key principles called the desired sharing proposition. Now, the desired sharing proposition is basically a USP en fuego. It's like an expanded version of what most people build their business on, a unique selling proposition or a value proposition or whatever. But it's really about creating desire and demand for your brand so that you are attracting those perfect customers, the people who want to be in your vortex, those people who are magnetized by everything that you do. And when you do this right and you get your messaging dialed in and you get your branding messaging and everything dialed in and create this desired journey with your brand, you will have raving fans for life. You'll have so much clarity on what you're doing next. It's going to be so much easier just to sell your jewelry, to command higher price points, and all the things. So traditional USPs don't work anymore because, in my opinion, the jewelry industry is quite saturated. That doesn't mean that you can't stand out with your brand, but there's a lot of people out there. And the interesting thing is I'm having a lot of my peers and colleagues who started their businesses back in the 90s, these women who are in their late 40s and early 50s, who started their businesses back in the 90s when I did, who launched their independent jewelry brand, who are coming back and to me now trying to figure out, how do I sell direct to consumer? I can't figure this out because when I was selling wholesale, I didn't have to worry so much about who those people were on the other end because that's the store's responsibility. It's their responsibility to be able to communicate the story. How do I continue to communicate what I stand for as a business owner and as a brand selling direct to consumer? And I've had quite a few people coming to me out of the woodwork lately, just asking for my support and help. And the reason why they're asking is because they're so used to just going to a trade show and writing orders and developing a personal relationship with a store buyer. And that's fantastic. And it works. It's worked for a long time and all the things. But at the end of the day, wholesale is always changing. Businesses go through cycles. The one thing that will never change is your ability to reach customers directly using your website as a tool. So this desired sharing proposition, my methodology, was really built out of my need and desire to relaunch my brand in a direct-to-consumer model back in the early 2010, 11, 12, and understand this new way of marketing back then. It's not new anymore, but this new way of marketing on the internet. Like, how do you create a website that actually attracts ideal buyers? How do you message about your brand? How do you share your story without boring the F out of yourself and other people? Not that you're going to do that. We all get in our heads thinking that we're going to do that. The truth of the matter is that people want to hear that. They want to know that. They want to connect with you. They want to connect on what matters to you, the core values, all of these things that are your guiding principles, your mission, your vision for your company, the direction that you're going. What is in it for these dream customers? What are the key motivators for them buying? And so all of these things help you create a connection, and they help you create the sharing economy, which is all getting people to come on board and become your raving fans. Now, the cool part about this is that jewelry is an emotional purchase. And so the more that you can evoke emotion from your perfect customers, the more jewelry you are going to sell. So let's talk a little bit more about the core components of your DSP or desired sharing proposition. So first, we're going to talk about brand voice and values. Your values must cross over with what your dream clients think are important, or what the things that matter to your dream clients. Maybe that's a better way to put it. We call these core crossover values. So when you have strong values as a business owner, or core values, whatever you want to call it, I've heard them called so many different things. Basically, these are just the guiding principles that lead you on your journey. Now, the best businesses have no more than 5 or 6. I've seen people have up to 10. It just becomes a little bit overwhelming when you have that many core values. And really, the way that you want to think about this is that you want to have few enough so that they roll off your tongue. You're not going to forget them, but also have them be meaningful enough so that they connect with your audience. Because typically, most of the values that you stand for as a human being are going to be the same things that your customers value if you're doing this in the right way. And then this weaves in to how you're positioning your brand, how you're communicating with the world, and the brand story, the brand voice, the personality of your brand, the language that you use is very powerful and empowering and important. So it's not just what you say, but how you say it. So One of the things that we have in a brand guidelines, this is something that we've developed over at Flourish and Thrive Academy many, many years ago, but like we speak like this, but not like this. We use words like this, but we do not use words like this. Our tone is this, it is not this. And now you probably have noticed if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, I am a fancy lady, but I'm also very informal. Like I'm not this polished, like professional thing. I swear, I stutter a lot. I say what I think and mean. Sometimes I go on little rambles because that is who I am at the core. And that's really what this brand is about. And the personality of the Flourish and Thrive brand is supportive, community over competition, fun, right? These are all things that we want to be supporting you in and helping people on their journey. We also have core values that include things like accountability. And what I mean by that is that it is not only my team members, but it is the responsibility of the business owner to get the result that they are going for. I can guide you to the water, but I can't make you drink. What I mean by that is that we give our students all of the tools and people listening to this podcast, but it is your responsibility to actually go and execute and implement them. And also be a smart business owner and understand that no one is going to save your business except for you. I can teach you principles that are going to help you grow, but if you're unwilling to do the work, it is not going to change. Nothing will change. And I see this, people just want an excuse about why things aren't working. And a lot of times they'll blame someone else for things not working, like their situation, their scenario, and all that stuff. If you're in that mode, get out of it right away, because I'm telling you right now, it is your responsibility to make your business work. No one else's. And if it's not working, take a look inside about what is going on with you. Maybe something needs to shift. Maybe you have a mindset shift that needs to happen. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe you do. But at the end of the day, in this world, there are a lot of choices. And the more that you can stand out and be that brand that is connecting with your audience and taking full responsibility for what you're doing, the more sales you're going to get and the more your business will grow. So at the end of the day, what I really want to drive home here is that when you, as a business owner, as a jewelry business owner or product business owner, can align what matters to you to what actually matters to your dream customers and use that as the guiding principle and speak about it in a variety of different ways. Like think about how many different ways can you talk about the values that matter to you. The more you'll start to attract the right people to your brand. So for instance, if philanthropy is important to you and you have a certain cause that you're dedicated to do, like let's say that you are devoted to animal rights, like Lindsey the Ladysmith is. Well, one of the key guiding principles of her business is animal rights. And what she has been doing is actually taking a portion of her proceeds and donating it to animal rights organizations. And she's been able to donate. Last year, I think she donated $3,000, and every single year she donates more. And that's a significant amount of money for a small business owner like her. So that's someone who walks the walk and is really living the desired brand effect. And that's why we created the brand voice section of this template, so that you can get clarity on like, how are you speaking to the outside world? What are the things that you will and will not say? How do you communicate your brand personality with other people? Are you showing up as yourself? Are you operating from an alter ego state? Both are great, but how is it that you're showing up in the world? The next part about this is your brand story. And your brand story isn't necessarily just about you. It is your opportunity to create a story or be storytelling by drawing your customers into, or your potential customers or prospects or dream clients, ideal customers, into your vortex by making it more about them. Now, one of the big mistakes that I see when people are communicating and creating their brand story is it's like this professional thing where it's like all about their accolades, and that's important. That's more of an artist bio. And they forget about their customer. They start their about page with meet the maker, or they start their about page with, I started my jewelry journey in 1997 or something like that. So instead of something like meet the maker, I worked with one of my clients on this, Julia Fryer Fine Jewelry, and she decided and determined that one of her core guiding principles was developing a faith-based brand and her faith as a Christian. So we worked on this together and we came up with a hook for her about page: custom fine jewelry for faith-centered couples who believe their love story is part of God's greater plan. Now, she's working on updating her website, but do you see how that's different? She can say, I design Christian jewelry, or she could say something about the customers in that. And that's exactly how we repositioned her about page to talk more about her customers and bring them into the brand story. So as you're developing your brand story or redeveloping whatever it is, think of it not so much in terms of your artist bio, which is still an important element. You need that for publicity and other things when you're out into the world. Think about like, how can I write a narrative, a brand story that actually shares the journey of my customer and then it draws it back into why I'm doing this. So you want to get clear on your why as a business owner. You want to get clear on some of these deeper elements that dive into your mission, your vision, your core values, and all the things. And so this is an important part of developing a strong brand asset or just a strong desired sharing proposition. So the next step of this is to think about, how does your story make someone feel? Do you have a transformational pivot in your journey or on your story that has been a game changer for you? Or is there something along the way that you wanted to share that is relevant to your audience that brings them on the emotional journey of your brand? The more emotional that you can make your customer, the more tied in. This is something that brands like Tiffany have done really well. They have emotional, story-driven campaigns that make a lot of new brides want to have a Tiffany ring. Otherwise, why would someone pay twice as much money for a diamond that they buy at Tiffany that they could buy somewhere else on 47th Street in the Diamond District in New York City versus the Tiffany ring, right? You know, it's like, it's not just about the way something looks, it's about the emotional connection that the brand can create. And this is how you can start to command more for your products. And the cool thing about this is I give you some sections in there to help you develop your brand story and your artist bio and all these things that you're going to use from a marketing perspective so that it resonates with your ideal customers. And then we break it down into your visual identity. Your visual identity is everything that you do, all the brand assets, the physical, tangible assets that you have that make up your visual identity. These are also part of your desired sharing proposition. Your fonts, your logos, your color story, your branding, the design elements that you use, the icons that you use on your website, the textures. I think I said colors, but I'm going to say colors again. The packaging that you have, right? Your product, your line sheets, your catalogs, like all these things that are working together to create a unique experience for your brand in a visual way. And many times the physical brand assets that you have, things like your website, your packaging, your line sheets, your catalogs, the visual photography, like all these things that represent this visual emotional connection that you're creating, sometimes those do a lot more than even just words by the way that you're putting them out there. And so don't put this to the side. Packaging can go a long way. There's so many products that like aren't even that expensive to produce, but they're able to charge so much more because of the packaging. So consider how your visual branding takes you on this journey, right? And so as you're building your visual brand, whether you have it already and you just want to like plop it in this template, or you're someone who's still in that stage of developing it, this visual brand is an amazing way for you to just think, okay, what are the words or the adjectives or the feeling statements that I want people to feel when I'm looking at this brand? And then as you do that, I want you to take a look at what your actual branding is, the visual branding is, and do a little research, because you can do some great research online with things like color theory and understand how different colors make people feel. And we have in our Laying the Foundation program, we have a whole training on that. So color theory is really important. So thinking about how the brand makes your customers feel, like what is that aesthetic or energy that you're trying to get out there to make people feel? And that feeling state is the thing that is going to get people to resonate and connect with your brand. So you want to make sure that when you're creating your visual identity, that your visual identity matches your brand voice. So for instance, you don't want to develop something that's super high luxury looking, and then all of a sudden you have this casual, colloquial kind of slang brand voice, right? You want them to in some way, shape, or form resonate. And that's not to say that you can't design a luxury fine jewelry brand and be casual. I've certainly done that. It's just about aligning how you're positioning and how you're designing your brand assets and putting yourself out into the world with how you are actually speaking about those things. So when you think of some of these ruler brands, and I call it the ruler archetype, I didn't make up the archetypes. These are things that have been passed down by Carl Jung, but they're branding principles. We talk a little bit more about them in our Laying the Foundation program. A lot of jewelry brands use the ruler archetype. So an example of the ruler archetype would be like Cartier. They are very untouchable. Everything's super polished and high lux, like the language and how they present themselves. It's very like regal and royal, right? It's like they're ruling the jewelry space. So that would be an example of almost like an untouchable brand. Now, one thing that I see, it's great for a big brand. I feel like a big brand can do that and create something that's really almost like aspirational in a way where they're trying to get people to get hooked onto it because it is such a big brand. One mistake that I see a lot of jewelry business owners doing is that they design high-end, finer jewelry and they want to have a luxury brand, which I highly support. I think it's an amazing thing. The challenge is that if people want to buy high jewelry or very expensive jewelry, typically they have to have brand recognition if you're doing something that's super high end. I had someone come to me a while back, maybe 6 months ago, and she was designing high jewelry. And she kept identifying that her customers were all these people who wear Chanel and Cartier and all of these big expensive brands. And that's fantastic and amazing. The challenge is with high jewelry, unless you develop a collector base, which I think is the way to go for people who are designing high jewelry who aren't a Cartier. Focus on developing a collector base. Don't try to be like Cartier because hundreds and hundreds of millions or billions of dollars in annual revenue. They have huge ad budgets. They have been around for so long that they are literally a household name for the rich and famous or whatever, the wealthy, aspirational people out there. And so the one thing that I recommend, like I mentored a guy named Timothy Stamens. He's one of the most talented jewelry business owners I've ever seen. He took one of my programs last year. And the fun thing about watching him is that he has really successfully figured out how to create collectors around high jewelry. He is one of the most talented high jewelry artists I've ever seen. And it was so fun because one of my other clients actually is taking a stone setting class and he happens to be the teacher in that class. And I was like, oh, that's so fun. And I had been just referencing him a couple of days before in our session together. So anyway, this whole thing with high jewelry, it's like, if you want to be that brand, you have to create either a collector base or be more approachable in how you're reaching people. Because here's the thing, people buy from people. And if you're someone who's putting yourself out there, there has to be this authenticity and accessibility to your brand that matches the visuals and the voice of your brand. I hope that makes sense. But we can take this in any direction. It's like if you have a brand like Chelsea's where it's definitely like more accessible, it's a low price point. It is Chelsea's brand, if you don't know, is called Horse Feathers Gift. She designs beaded gemstone jewelry that is size inclusive. That is her main audience is in the Midwest, although she ships all over the world. She has built a culture around her brand of family and friend and animals. And we include everyone because this is size inclusive jewelry. So if you have a little bit of a bigger wrist or a smaller wrist, we can make it for you. And you don't have to worry about it not fitting ever. And so she's built this amazing brand around this. It's super accessible. And her branding is so on point from the way the images look, her website, the way she speaks about things, the way she puts herself out there. It's like Chelsea everywhere. So you can do this at any stage in business, at any shape or any price point. But the point being is that you want to make sure that the visual assets really match that brand voice and they're in alignment with what your dream clients want from you. So remember that when I remembered this when I was designing my fine jewelry line, and even though I design pieces sometimes that are upwards of $50,000, what I really wanted to create is this culture of I am an artist, I'm a designer, and I'm going to intuitively design for you. And to be able to create something that you are so proud of that you want to show it off every single day. And it's also something that no one else has. And so if you're not down with that vibe and you're not down with working with someone who's intuitive and you're not down with someone who is really soulful and connected to their project that you're working with, and you just want something that is blingy or flashy, I'm not your gal. But that's part of the reason why it landed and resonated so hard. It's like I wasn't trying to be this high-end brand. So make sure that your visuals match your voice. Be consistent with the way that you are promoting yourself and putting yourself out there because that builds trust. And then create desire through your imagery. The visual examples of what you do from a photography perspective can be so powerful in invoking emotion. And I mentioned this earlier, but the more your visuals align with the branding and the elements that you're trying to create from that brand voice, the more you're going to attract the right customers. So visual branding is extremely important. And the good news is in the brand guidelines package, if you want to pick it up, we map out just a really easy template that you can plug and play your own visual branding so that you can see, like have it all in one place to see if it's communicating the message that you want to create as a brand. So as I'm wrapping up this episode, I want to just share with you a couple of ways that you can dive deeper into your desired sharing proposition. Number one, if you already have customers or clients and who are repeat customers and people who keep coming back, listen to the language that they speak. Interview them. Ask them to share what matters to them. Ask them a little bit more about who they are and what motivates them to buy and like why they enjoy your brand. What is that connection piece? Ask them those questions that are going to really help you understand a little bit more about what is it that makes them tick. And that's going to give you some insight and how you can use that to find more people like them. The next thing I wanted to talk about a little bit more is desire marketing, because the more that you are appealing to what your dream clients desire, I know we hear a lot about pain point marketing, but the more that you can hear about what your clients desire in relation to your brand, the easier it is going to be for them to sell. So if we were to use Chelsea's brand as an example, her clients desire to have jewelry that does not pinch their wrists if they have bigger wrists, or does not slide off their hand if they have smaller wrists. They desire to have something that is meaningful. They desire to have something where there's community around it, where they can wear those stacks every day and mix and match thing, and it doesn't break the bank, right? Those are their desires. That's why they're buying horse feathers gifts. The desire points of someone who is buying a Cartier, ring or bracelet or something along those lines is that they desire to have high status. They want a piece that is subtle and understated, but also people know when they see that piece that it's a Cartier bracelet, and that gives them a certain level of status. There's something about people who collect high-end jewelry from high-end brands that evokes this sense of status of where they are in the world. And it's like, I've seen this so much because living in New York City for 15 years, all the women, on the Upper East Side, all over, they want to have their Cartier love bracelet. It is something that people are drawn to. And so think through your brand. Do you have a brand where you're creating unique pieces that are very special and motivated by nature and kind of represent the land that you're around? So another way to think about this would be to think about like, what are some of the benefits of your jewelry? So if you're designing things that have healing gemstones or large crystals, and I think of Acid Queen jewelry or Alex Camacho, her pieces are big, bold statement pieces. And when she's putting pieces out into the world, like her audience really wants to feel connected to nature. They're a little bit witchy. They're into the mystical. And the jewelry that she makes really creates that connection for them. And those pieces are so big that there is definitely like strong charged energy coming out of them. So like a lot of people are probably wearing them for protection. Like that's part of their desire, is to wear these shields of protection around their energy. And the next thing that you want to identify and think through as you're digging deeper into your desired sharing proposition are, what are the emotional triggers for a purchase? Is it like instant gratification because they're shopping to make themselves feel better? Is it that the piece that they're buying is connecting them to the deepest love that they've ever had? Is it that, they want to feel safe and secure, and so they're buying something that is a protective amulet? There's so many different reasons. Like, what are the emotional reasons people buy your jewelry? Is it to build confidence? Is it to feel like they are a statement? And I'm saying that because like a lot of people buy statement jewelry, but why do people buy statement jewelry? Because they want to stand out, or maybe because jewelry always fits. So find the reasons of the emotional triggers of why people are buying your jewelry. So some of the common mistakes that I want you to avoid are being too general. So if you're being broad, basic, too general, or too formal, it's not going to land. Don't copy your competitors. Stop looking on the internet for how to define your brand. Dig deep into yourself. Like, what does it matter to you? And I know sometimes it's hard, but there are ways that you can use AI to help you basically identify and process through what you stand for as a brand to clearly communicate what you're doing, or work with a coach like Chelsea, or book a brand strategy with me. Like, all these things can help you. We can dig you deeper into what your brand voice is all about so that you don't sound like everyone else. And then make sure that you're consistent with your messaging. Make sure that you're not saying one thing here and another thing there, and then it makes sense. So here are a couple of quick wins that you can implement today. Audit your current messaging. Make sure that it is in alignment with where you're going. Make sure that you review your photography and have that photography in a space where it is evoking that emotion. So take a look at it. Does it really represent the energy or the vibe that you're trying to create with your brand? And if the answer is no, easy enough to do another photo shoot. And the cameras are so good on iPhones now, even, or any smartphone, that you can create your own photo shoot. And a lot of our students do that. And then consider updating your about page and making it about your customers and weaving some of the concepts that I talked about in it today. Okay, before I sign off, I just want to recommend that you pick up The Desired Brand Effect. It is our 3-year anniversary. This book is amazing. And if you've already purchased the book and you purchased it on Amazon or one of the other spots, please give us a rating and review. I would appreciate it so much, especially if you loved it. If you picked up the audiobook, please give it a rating and review and share how much you enjoyed it. And the reason why I ask this is because your ratings and reviews, especially the positive ones, helps it get into the hands of more people just like you. So definitely download the brand guidelines, the Desired Sharing Proposition brand guidelines. We have them available right now for just $47. The price is going to go up soon. Get it, download it. You can input everything that we talked about in this episode, and we'll have links in the show notes. And then you have an amazing visual representation that you can keep in your Google Drive, or you can print it out and have something to share on your trade show booths or in your markets or whatever you're doing, to tell people a little bit more about your brand, and also to educate yourself and your team about what it is that you stand for and what you're doing. It's a really great exercise, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it. All right, everyone, head on over to flourishthriveacademy.com/brand guidelines and go pick up that template right now. And if you want to grab my book, you can head on over to thedesiredbrandeffect.com and check it out. All right, everyone, ciao for now. Bye. In honor of the 3-year anniversary of my best-selling book, The Desired Brand Effect, Stand Out in a Saturated Market with a Timeless Jewelry Brand, I've released a brand new, incredible resource that I am so excited about. It is called The Desired Sharing Proposition Brand Guidelines. So if you don't know what brand guidelines are, then number 1, pick up my book. But number 2, check it out. Your brand guidelines are the guiding principles in which you run your company. And if you don't have a clear tool or representation of what you stand for and how you do it and all the things that make your jewelry business unique and a standout brand, well, you probably have a hard time communicating what you do with the outside world. These brand guidelines include things like your vision, your mission, your core values, why you're in business, and all of the ways that you communicate the perceived value of your brand. And if you haven't fully fleshed this out, this is a great opportunity for you to dig deep and have a visual representation of what makes your brand desirable. So if you want to check it out and you want to download this template to use for yourself, head on over to flourishthriveacademy.com/brand guidelines and create your desired sharing proposition today. Get ready to become a magnet for your perfect customers.